Hi guys. I'm currently solo doing the podcast today. Chris should be here any minute. We're going to be talking about the roller coasters of owning and operating a small business. And one of those roller coasters is that your counterpart didn't show up on time. We'll talk more about that. He's working out in the field this week. And so I'm sure, got caught in traffic or something. So he should be here soon. I do want to, real quick, just say that we appreciate everyone that's liking, subscribing, following us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Please hit those share buttons and let your friends and family know that we're here and that we want to help them out too. Yeah, so I'm going to kind of start in with like what my week has looked like. With Chris out of the office, we've kind of went over this a few times before, when he went on vacation and such, but this was kind of a last minute deal. We had to pivot around to get jobs done in time. We had a guy decide to go a different path, and he put his notice in, and he's no longer with us. So until we get him a replacement, Chris is kind of being his replacement. We also have some newer guys out in the field that Chris is training this week. So he's wearing lots of different hats. So for me in the office, that means I get to kind of take over some roles of his also. I think we've mentioned before that I think it was last week, was Tim's last week as our marketing coordinator. He got called to go do pastor services at the hospital. And so he went to do new endeavors also. And so I'm taking over the marketing role temporarily. So all your social media posts and stuff will be coming from me. If there's something you want to see, please comment, share, talk about it. We want to get all your questions answered and, really let you see behind the scenes of how we do things, be transparent with you, like about lead times and delays and just everything. We try not to beat around the bush or hide anything when it comes to you guys knowing what's going on with us. So this week I have added that marketing position into my daily routine. I've also been trying to help Chris out with changing some things up on quotes and different leads we have, following up with some leads we have. That way I can just get something scheduled for him. He knows exactly what time he needs to take a break from out in the field so he can do some phone consultations. And then hopefully by Friday he is free enough that he can go out and get some different actual infield consultations taken care of also. And so this is one of the roller coasters that we face is, oh, here he comes. I hear him. One of the roller coasters that we face of pivoting to fill the gap where it's needed. Hi.
I'm late.
You are late.
Well, that's what happens.
Right. So where you been?
Working.
Yeah?
Back in the field.
What's that like?
Exhausting.
Right.
Because I have to do that job plus my normal job.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good too. Like falling asleep physically exhausted is, even working out or something just doesn't compare to being out in 100-degree heat in the sun, constantly sweating, working
right
all day long.
Definitely gives you that reminder to be grateful for the guys out there doing it every day.
Yeah, for sure. What are we talking about today?
So we're talking about the roller coasters of owning a small business.
Like rushing from the job site to get to a podcast because
Yes.
It's important?
Right. And maybe this is a good spot to start of talking about kind of how we got here, of why you're working out in the field this week and what that looks like, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so probably one of the toughest things about being a small business owner is employees matter a lot more for us than they do for, even employees, even companies that have 50 employees, 75, 100, like there's always an extra floater somewhere or someone can jump in. With us, there was 5 field guys, and one of them decided to take another opportunity, which is cool. But it's also really, really, really hard to find new employees right now.
Right.
I read an article the other day that said it was called The Great Resignation, which is terrifying. But with that, like, he gave me plenty of notice. He left on great terms, and someone had to do his job.
Right.
So,
well, and that's what I was going to say too, is he left with a lot of experience. He took that with him. And so not only is it hard to find employees that want to work right now, it's also hard to find employees that have experience and can bring to the table what he took with him.
Yeah.
So,
yep, absolutely. So, that means that I get to put that hat back on, being a
Right.
crew lead and working with some of the younger guys and training them. And it's kind of funny because some of the guys that work with us have never seen me in the field, and I really haven't been out of the field for that long. So it's a different sense of relationship for us to grow,
right.
and see a new side, and that I can be out in the field, and that what I expect of them is stuff that I've done for years and that I'm capable of. And
Right. Yeah. So how does that, I mean, I'm sure you said, you're working with the guys that are newer to the company and a little more green. So how does that bring frustrations to you? When you left the field, you were working with some of our best guys. So how do you handle those frustrations, and what do they look like?
A lot of it's just inexperience. We've got two really, really good younger guys. But one's 20 and one's 22. One has zero experience in construction, so we're training him. It's just a world of difference from saying, okay, you need to do this step and this step and this step and this step, rather than being able to tell some of our more experienced guys, like, hey, go do these 3 things and come back when it's done. And just like you and I kind of talked about before the show, but being a leader and not just a dictator, it slows the jobs down, frankly, but in a very positive way, that at the end of the year, or at the end of whatever timeline it takes for them to get trained up, that they know how to work autonomously and think through a problem and create solutions for themselves, rather than always coming back and saying, hey, crew lead, what's this? Or this is my issue. How do I fix it?
Right. Well, and we've also talked about, it is easier, I say that lightly, to search for someone with a lot of experience, but we all know that in the construction field, not everything's done the same way.
Right.
There's a lot of ways to come out to one result. And so that is a positivity of getting guys that aren't as experienced, as you get to be out there in the field and train them to do it the way that you expect it to be done, and it to look the way you expect it to look.
Yeah,
the quality
for sure.
work.
So definitely, like, it's easier to teach a new guy for the first time than it is to break bad habits. But also right now, like, just with the way the market is and how, we've talked about this before on here, that so many kids were pushed to go to college and go get a liberal arts degree or go get a business degree, and when they really could have gone and learned a trade. Well, that was, I graduated high school in 07 or 06, so 15 years ago now. Those guys would all have 15 years experience if they'd have
Right.
just started then, where a lot of those guys went and got degrees and are still working jobs making 30, 35, 40 grand a year.
Right.
And so there's this big gap of, you either have guys that are in their 40s or above, which guys in 40s are still good, but sometimes you got guys in their 60s that's the only person that you can find that are skilled.
Right.
Most of the guys that I know that are highly skilled that are in their 60s are not interested in switching companies.
Right.
They found a company that they're a great fit for and that works with their lifestyle, and I don't begrudge them that at all. So that just makes very slim pickings for the rest of us.
Right. No, that makes sense. So what are some other roller coasters besides this, or maybe when you have to be on the field and train, what other roller coasters does that lead you down?
Well, so one thing I will say about employees and kind of the roller coaster is building that roller coaster. A lot of times at the beginning of a roller coaster, you have the part where it like clinks and pulls you up, and then you go through the big drop. So that's one thing that's really, really important for us, and that's why we give the guys books on leadership, and we push them and we send them for training and we give them seminars. And we'll talk about one of the other roller coasters, but we don't begrudge them when they take personal days.
Right.
Because those guys are super valuable and are really important. And the ones who trust me enough with their livelihood and their career, like, I want to make sure that I live up to that expectation and provide an environment where they can not just survive, but really thrive.
Right.
But one of the roller coasters that you talk about is absolutely, we've got 4 field guys right now. Or we've got 5 field guys again, because we hired another young one. They all need to be coached 5 very different ways.
Right. Yeah. They are very different personalities, each one of them.
Yeah. One of them just needs, all the way from just doesn't want it sugar coated, just wants the facts, no emotion, to, one of our top guys literally gives me a hug and calls me dad some days.
Right.
And it's just about finding a way to be able to be that leader for all of them, which is a struggle. It really is hard, on top of wearing all the hats that you do and working with you and making sure we keep marketing and stuff like that. Like, it's just a lot.
Right. Well, and I'm sure that, at some points of your day, you're like, it'd just be easier if I did it all myself. But then you start doing it all yourself, or, you're like,
Yeah.
there's not enough for me to do it all myself. Like, there's not enough of you to go to all the parts that you need to go to.
100%. Mentally, it would be so much easier to just do everything. But I've had this conversation with several people. That's not how you build a brand.
Right.
And that's not how you scale, and that's not how you get bigger. And one of the reasons that I started this company was because I want to build this legacy of bringing back respect to the trades and showing guys that you can make a good living doing this. And I think that's kind of across the board the culture that's really come out of construction in the last 3 to 5 years. Is a lot of companies are saying that, and I love it. But going back to just being an owner operator doesn't allow me to really do that.
Right.
So
what are the 3 most stressful parts of owning a business?
Depends on the day.
Right. No, I have that.
Absolutely. Number one is balance. And not that there's always going to be balance. We talked about this before as well. There's going to be times where you got to work till 7 or 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And there's, when we did a flip house a couple years ago, I would leave at 6:30 in the morning and get home at midnight. And like, I saw my kids when they would bring me dinner for 20 minutes. So that's always stressful, is the time balance of finding time to do that, but still be a good dad at home. And really, like, my wife had a really, really wise moment, and actually, like, cause I've been working late and trying to do this. And even when I get home, I'm taking calls cause I have to handle the business side of stuff,
right,
and not just the field. But she had this really wise moment and said, it's not necessarily about being here half the time or being here X amount of time. It's just, when you're here, be here,
right,
be present and be with the kids. And that gave me a lot of peace, that it's okay if you need to work till 6 or 7, as long as when you go home, you're not still like, leave work at work,
right.
Hang out with, I've got an 11-year-old and a 6-year-old and a 16-month-old, and they're amazing. So
yeah,
part of that was, for me, is realizing that right now, maybe it all doesn't get done in a day. And we talk a lot about being a communication company and a customer service company, but kind of pushing some of that off on you,
right? Even
more so. Like, you're obviously our customer experience officer and you handle a lot of those things for us, but you're going to have to handle even more,
right?
This is really only a 3-day thing. He gave his notice, and last Friday was his last day. So this week has been when we really jumped in, and I've been juggling even more. So just pushing it off. And even if it's a text to a client saying, hey, this is the reality. I didn't get there, but I haven't forgotten you. Please bear with me.
Yeah.
And
we talk a lot about the clients that we do have, and, the clients that we want to work for. They're the clients that understand those things. Like, they understand the trade and understand that things come up, and It's not those boiling conversations every time.
I think
have
that's
to
a
have
lot,
one.
and I struggle with this a lot. So this is probably one of my other roller coasters, but it's head trash.
Mhm.
And I got that from the sales group that I was a part of for a long time. But it's so true. Like, there's days where I'm exhausted and I'm like, I don't want to call this client and give them bad news. And then you call and you tell them and you're just upfront and like, hey, this is the reality. What do you want to do? And 99% of the time, like, okay, cool, I understand. Just
Right.
let me know in a couple days.
Well, and I think that head trash that you talk about comes to all of us,
Right.
like I used to work retail before this, and those phone calls are not fun to make. And sometimes I like get PTSD from that. Like if
Uh-huh.
we have bad lead times on something or find out that a supplier isn't going to get something to us, but when they thought they were, I'm like,
Or when the supplier waits till the day it's supposed to show up to say, oh yeah, we're 2 months behind.
right. Yeah.
Because you
I
found
mean,
that out today.
yeah. So, yeah, I think that comes to all of us. And I think that we've just built a community with our clients that we're realistic up front.
Mhm.
We let people know everything is very tentative. Like we're going to try our best to
Mhm.
reach those deadlines and meet those deadlines. But at the same time, like we can't control it all. We don't supply and produce our own materials.
Oh, that sounds even worse than what we already do.
We got a comment up here, a couple of them.
Yeah, Matt's talking. Right there with you, Chris. The head trash is always a struggle. Yeah, so Matt's one of my really good contracting buddies up from Canada. And he and I talk definitely every week, and for a while it was every day, and it just doesn't happen sometimes. But the head trash is real.
Mhm.
He's got another one with an actual question.
I boss them around.
How do you juggle everything you need to do on a daily basis? Definitely a plan. So I try really hard to time block. I definitely have a task list or a power list or whatever you want to call it that you check off. And then just a lot of urgency and a lot of hustle, Matt. So probably one of the things that I notice the most is with some of my guys is the guys who have worked in like retail or food service or something like that, where like they have that another gear that they
Mhm.
can turn on and like what they could
They
normally
know the
produce.
dinner rush.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you can't walk at your casual gait. You got to
Right.
like run walk.
Right.
I live in that mode at work.
Right.
Um, and utilizing every moment of time. So like 90% of the time I will plan a trip to the store for missing materials or like running to this podcast. And I'm eating my lunch in the truck while I'm driving. I'm not sitting down and taking a 30-minute lunch and having a conversation and playing on my phone. So I guess all that boiled down into one word is just being really intentional, Matt. And I know, Matt's actually, I think today is Matt's 75th day on 75 hard.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's a machine. So, but to get through that 75 days, you have to be really intentional. And so it's just like that, just bringing it to work and then giving yourself grace. If you have 15 hours worth of stuff to do and you really only have 12 hours to get it done because you got a kid's soccer practice at the end, like that's a big part of it too, is understanding that you won't always achieve it all.
Got another one here.
Cool.
Sounds like having a plan before the day starts is important to you.
Yeah. I mean, you either you either plan to fail or you fail to plan, or I guess failing to plan is planning to fail. Is that how you say it? Yeah.
Well, and his comment kind of leads me in the direction I was headed. So what happens when you get a call that the windows the guys are installing aren't fitting the right way, or they ran into something that they haven't seen before, and your plan that you had when you showed up to work no longer takes place?
Well, I'm going to use your favorite word here. You pivot.
Right.
One, I'm thankful we live in 2021. All the political and ridiculousness aside, but technology is amazing.
Mhm.
So FaceTime, pictures, videos, all of that helps me to attack problems from afar. But sometimes you just need to go out there.
Right.
Sometimes video doesn't do it. You need to have your hands on it. You need to push and pull and prod and see what's going to work or how bad something is. you just move your day around.
Right.
It's really important. One of the other things that we talk a lot about in my contracting groups that I'm part of, and just like in business in general, is things that are the difference between important and urgent.
Mhm.
You
Well,
know,
you and I talk about that a lot.
yeah. So making sure we have all of September's marketing planned is important.
Mhm.
But August 1st, it wasn't urgent.
Right.
Now September 1st is pretty urgent. We need to make sure we have that.
Right.
Or the guy's calling and saying, "Hey, I want to talk to you about my vacation this winter." That's super important because I want them to take it and I want to make sure we plan accordingly for it. I don't need to pull off a job or pull out of a podcast or cancel a client meeting to go do that right now.
Right.
And
Mhm.
so, just knowing the difference and um, being okay with knowing that something, here's a hard one for me, is we live in this immediate gratification world. And so, like, I've turned off most notifications on my phone. Don't get notifications when I get emails. I live a lot of my day on do not disturb because I have this thing in my head where if I see that notification, I need to answer it. I need to answer that email. I need to answer that text message. Those things, all that does is create something else I have to stop for.
Right.
Whether I'm in the middle of installing a window or we're building a deck or I'm designing a sunroom or I'm planning marketing, those messages can happen later.
Right. Well, and I kind of think that's why my position came into place to
Mhm.
say is, that I can kind of be a line of communication and give suppliers or clients or whoever answers
Mhm.
based on, or even if the answer is, well, Chris is in a meeting, Chris is in the field today, let me talk with him and I'll give you a call back. However that
Mhm.
looks, but it's not as much as we're just do not disturb and not answering them. And so I think that, at least I hope that that line of me in the middle has helped cut back on some of that and doesn't leave you where now tomorrow when you're back in the office, you have 17 emails to respond to.
Right. Yeah, I think it absolutely does help. I will say also that, like, having you be the line of communication, it's way faster for you to call and say, "I have these 10 questions," and we burn through them in 3 minutes,
Right.
and then you communicate that out and distribute the information.
It's probably not 3 minutes. We get like way off track.
Not when we're in a hurry. But yeah, it's go do the 3, okay, call it 5-minute conversation, call it 10 minutes, rather than having a 10 to 15-minute conversation with each person.
Right.
It's just about efficiency.
Matt's got another comment for us.
Cool. I like it. Back to head trash. Let's say you have a plan for the day, 5 big tasks, and you're constantly pivoting and get one task done. How do you deal with that mentally at the end of the day?
That's my struggle.
So 2 things there. One, are all of those tasks urgent and important? Because if I can say that either answer is no to those, then I'm going to give myself grace. If they're both urgent and important, then sometimes you just got to work late. Sometimes there have been many days where I go to a kid's practice and then come home and eat dinner and get Ben to bed and do his whole bath time routine and then as soon as the kids go to bed, I get my iPad out and go back to work for a couple hours.
Right.
So it's really being honest with yourself, because that's also, I say give yourself grace, but that's also not an excuse to say, oh, well, I didn't get to calling that person back because it's going to be a difficult conversation, or I didn't give this person a number on their project because I'm fearful that they'll say no, or it's going to be out of their budget, or like, don't give yourself a way out, but very much so, just be honest with yourself. Did you do everything you could to win that day? If you did, then it's okay that sometimes you just fall short.
Well, and also with that, I think we personally, especially me with all my lists and stuff that's all around the office,
Too many lists.
I
Way too
try
many lists.
to get things done the minute that I get them.
Mhm.
Instead of waiting until they're urgent or waiting until they're important, using that downtime. Because not all day, every day is a crazy havoc
Mhm.
sudden have to pivot and do this instead. So in those moments that we're not like, you really have to utilize those and time block and work hard. So then when something does come up, you've already got most of that other stuff taken care of.
Yeah, so that's one thing I will say as far as being intentional is I do try to be really intentional about not answering every text or email or whatever as soon as it comes in. But I also try to be intentional that every hour or when I'm done with said task before I start another one, okay, let's check those and let's do something about it. So, this is not a productivity podcast by any stretch of the imagination, but one thing I really like is Inbox Zero, which basically is just a system where as soon as you read an email, you take some form of action, whether it's putting it in unread and this needs to be dealt with tomorrow or
your
next
email
week.
system is something else. That is not how I function.
Yeah, I have to keep organized.
Right.
But like, and so like I can put a task on it. Hey, I need to address this on Thursdays or, but doing something with it. A new person comes in and wants to talk about a project or calls and wants to talk about a project. Like I need to stop and insert that into the CRM or into the calendar right then, because in 10 seconds, one of the guys is going to call me or you're going to ask a question. And that's why I tell the guys all the time, like, if you don't put your time request off or whatever in paper, it didn't happen.
Right.
Because I just forget.
Right. So, we've kind of talked about the head trash side of things and some of the stressors of those roller coasters. Let's talk about the other side. What are the peaks of the roller coasters like for you? What are the best things about owning a business? And
first and foremost, absolutely is client satisfaction. That's why I started. That's why I like construction so much, even before I started my own company. But that's one of the big reasons I did start it. Was I go back to the deck and pergola we just did, where the client refused to give our lead the check at the end because it was so perfect. I had to come back and see it, which I love. Like that's amazing to me. She was so excited and so happy. So that's absolutely one. Knowing what we provide for the guys is super cool. So, thinking about, hey, I make sure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, make sure 7 families have a steady income every week.
Right.
Because we're not the kind of company that says, oh, you get 50 hours this week and only 15 next, or we try and make sure the guys get as close to 40 as possible within reason when not paying them to twiddle their thumbs.
Right.
That's super cool. And then hopefully as we continue to get bigger, brand recognition and people saying that company is synonymous with quality. That company is synonymous with excellence and customer service. Like those are the things that we hear, but we don't hear as much as I want to, because we're just not there yet. This whole customer service thing is a new push really in the last 6 months.
So I noticed, and it's funny that, you kind of gave those 3 things that really bring pride to you. But one thing you didn't say is, I like to be my own boss. That's what I hear all across the board, why people are business owners, because they want to work for themselves. And, and to me, that's almost the opposite of why I don't own my own business, is because there's no one else to really, you go through it every day, but there's no one else to really lay all this stuff out on and be like, here you go.
So I wouldn't say it because I like being my own boss. I say it because I have this weird sadistic part of me that I like the responsibility. I like knowing that if you tell a client the wrong timeline, somehow I haven't set you up for success.
Right.
Whether that's training you correctly, or I put something in the calendar wrong, or we didn't have a system to double check it.
Right.
Just like if the guys have a quality issue, like that comes to me. If there's a breakdown in communication, that's my fault. So I really like that, like the buck stops here.
Right.
Especially because you see so many people that are so quick to blame everyone else. I mean, just in society in general, I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, whatever. It's always someone else's fault for their issues. And so I kind of try and stay in my lane.
Well, and even with that, we really, we bring that onto the guys too. Like I I would say out of all 5 field employees we have, they all are quick to say, "Oh, I did that wrong because of X," or, you know, "I'm gonna be late because of Y," you know, whatever. Like, they're very well at taking responsibility, and I think that kinda comes from a stem down from you. Like, you're not one that's like, "Well, I didn't get this because of this," or "This
Right.
was done wrong because of this." Like, you take that ownership, and I think that really, um, trickles down into the guys also.
It's culture.
Mhm. Got a couple more comments.
Seeing growth in the employees is a wonderful thing as well. Them getting better in their own lives is what drives me. Yeah, man. It's cool. Like we have one of my favorite employees, and I won't name him by name, but um he's had a hard life and he's dealt with some struggles, and he kind of was just putting the pieces of his life together when I hired him. And he's been with me for over a year, and he literally makes me proud. He's the one who looks at me as a father figure because he's young, but to see how far he's come in a year and see that just like he's taking ownership. And we talk about issues, and the other day on Monday we were at our company meeting, and we were talking about some issues with some past things, and he's like, doesn't matter why it happened, it matters how we fix it, and Classic Home Concepts is going to put out the product that we need to put out regardless of whatever things we have to overcome. And like, man, a year ago, he'd
He was
he'd have
stressed.
been frustrated and throwing tools and walking off the job to go smoke a cigarette. And
Mhm.
I mean, just watching them grow is super cool.
Right,
And knowing that like I'm helping them in their personal lives as much as their professional lives, I really like.
right.
Even just honestly, like I just said that in my head, and like calling construction a professional life. Like people didn't used to think about the trades that way. That was just your job, but it
Mhm.
was a profession when you were white collar or something.
Right,
Blue collar is just as respectable. I mean, we create the spaces you live in and you love, and that keep you warm and dry and safe, and
right. That also said
hardest boss to have. Well, yeah.
it's true.
Hopefully the best boss too. That's the goal.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot, you know, being siblings and working with one another and having your brother as your boss, and I mean, I boss him around too, but, um, and that is such a it brings, like, we're a work family, that
Mhm.
family even stronger,
Yeah.
because even if we're frustrated at our work lives, I mean, we've talked about before, like, well, going to dinner with each other's families and whatever, and we're like, "We're not talking about work. We're not talking about work the
It's
whole time."
hard.
But, it is hard to get those different stressors,
Right?
set aside, but I think that that shows with the guys too, like, that we are more than just employees of yours, like, you
Yeah.
have created a family through
Let's jump back
everyone.
to this in a second. We got another comment.
Okay.
I have to catch a replay as I'm on a job site. But thanks, Craig. How's it going, man?
Hi there.
Hope you're doing good. When you watch it, shoot me a message. Let me know what you think, because I know you own your own company, and you probably deal with a lot of this too. So definitely give me some feedback, man. Um, yeah, I mean the guys are a family to me, and just like so, yesterday was a new experience for me. We just lost one of our best guys. Um, and then one of my other really skilled employees called and said, "Hey, I need to take a personal day. Not I'm sick, not one of my kids is sick. He just said I need a day for me." And that is a roller coaster, because emotionally I want to be frustrated because it just made my schedule harder. I want to be all these things, but the other part of me is very much I want them to be able to say that and be comfortable enough to tell me the truth and say, "Hey, I just need me time.
Right.
I'm It's been stressful, we've been busy." Yeah, it doesn't matter what. And if they're comfortable enough to tell me, that's cool too. But so that's probably one of the biggest roller coasters, is like that's a huge victory for me. Where like, hey, he's comfortable enough to say I need this day, and I know it's not ideal, but that's reality. And then the downside of that, are like, shit,
Right.
now I gotta go. Now I gotta
Now I'm
make
doing
sure it
this too.
happens. Everything still happens, or I have to communicate to a client why it's not.
Right.
And again, it goes back to having the right clients and saying, "Hey, I know this isn't ideal, but this is the schedule. This person needed it. That job can't happen without him."
Mhm.
Um, and typically they're understanding.
Right. got another comment here from Craig.
Cool. Awesome, dude. We had some serious storms this week, so glad to hear yours is doing much better than mine. So what else you want to talk about?
I don't know. We've kind of been all over the place. I mean, that's a typical
Well, yeah.
everyday conversation for us. Does anyone watching have anything they want us to talk about?
Yeah,
I'd
give us some
love to
questions.
answer some questions or anything.
So let's talk about, you said kind of like where we came from and how we got here. One of the things we can talk about is like one of the roller coasters that I deal with, or just one of the stressors you have as a small business is all the hats you wear.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started, I kind of was just a subcontractor for people, so I didn't do a whole lot of marketing. But then I started reading about branding and building a business, and I have this big dream of selling it one day, or wherever that goes. And so I started really trying to build. Well, when you're spending 50 or 60 hours in the field, but one, you're already your own accountant or bookkeeper. You're already your own scheduler, customer experience officer. Now you've got to be your own marketer. Oh, I don't know how to market. So now I got to teach myself to market while marketing.
Mm-hmm.
I need to figure out how to job cost. I need to figure out how to make sure my prices are where they should be, and not just, oh, the going rate is X.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. But am I making any money at the going rate?
Right.
Am I able to give a really great experience at the going rate? Because I know some guys that'll do like soffit and fascia for $1 a foot. You can't even make $15 an hour on that after you pay your insurance. And, oh, by the way, are you properly insured and licensed and all that? Are you constantly watching social media, following YouTube, reading articles, all this stuff to continue your education? So you're really wearing 10, 15, 20 hats, depending on the day.
Well, and, we're kind of wired the same. We joke about that a lot. And if you're anything like me, in those moments of wearing those hats, like, it's really hard to shut off this hat and put this hat on in the moment, like, we do it all the time talking to each other. We're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna also do this. And that leads to this whole other thing over here. And yeah, I think that, and I think I've seen it just since I started this year, but I think even throughout the years of that personal growth of, time management and also the growth of being able to hand over some of those hats. When you develop and build this thing that is so close to your heart and that you have so much passion for, it's hard to hand over some of those hats. And like today, for instance, making that thumbnail picture, for the thing, I was like, well, don't know if you like it, but you're not here, so I'm doing it anyways. And we have, I feel like, a very similar vision that I very rarely feel like, oh, well, he's not gonna like that, or whatever. But I also think that puts some more stress on you if people are doing things that kind of drive your passion.
So you brought up something there that I think comes back to why people own their own business, and they say, because I want to be the owner. That translates to, I want to control everything. And that is probably the hardest part for me of really starting to grow and expand, is delegation is super hard. And I struggled a lot. Like I love my new website, and the guys at Contractor Growth Network did an amazing job on it. And Logan and Chris are incredible people. But Logan had to kind of talk me off the edge there and was like, hey, this doesn't have to be exactly how you envisioned it. Like, this is our profession. It's what we do. It's how we do really well. So you need to trust me, even if it's 97% of what you thought.
Right.
And then Logan pushes me, and it's good. But then in his very direct deal, he goes, what if it's only 75% of what you want, but it's 100% of what clients want?
Right.
I was just like, man, but that's hard. Like, I want to be in control. I want to pick that. I want to make the final calls on all that. There's just not enough time in the day.
Right.
Matt's writing some. Where do you see this podcast going in a few months?
Hopefully showing up on time.
Yes. Yeah. Well, definitely one of the things. So here's a funny deal. You talk about growth in and kind of growing pains. We've been doing this for, is this week 8?
Yep, week 8.
Our podcast isn't actually on any of the podcast apps yet. It's on Facebook and it's on YouTube, but we never, I didn't tell the marketing guy to do it. And I kind of just realized that like we haven't ripped the audio and put it on the podcast app or on Spotify or any of those places. So that's coming. We'll make an announcement. Hopefully you guys will subscribe. So that's step 1. Let's get it on those apps, Matt. 2, we have a couple different visions for what we want here. Definitely want to have some more guests on and talk about some stuff. We had Joe from Ozark Fence kind of tell us about how he did this exact journey a couple years ago and where it's led him and how that's happened. So I definitely want to continue to have people on. Matt, you're asking specifically. So what's it going to be called? I don't know. You're creative. Give me a good name. I don't know. We'll have to work on a title.
The Chris and Kenzie show.
No, no. It'll be something Classic Home Concepts or
yeah, let's think on that.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for you right off the top of my head, Matt. But definitely want to have some guests on. You know, I've talked a little bit briefly to Tom Reber. I'd like to have him on and talk about how he's my business coach and how he's not only watched me but helped the ridiculous couple thousand contractors be successful and bring respect back to the trades. And like that's where I get that phrase from. So definitely want to do that. I don't know. So I don't know exactly where I want it to go. Bigger. The cliche cheesy answer is I want this to go where the listeners want to listen and more listeners want to listen. Because at the end of the day, it all goes back to Marcus Sheridan. They ask, you answer. So I think that would be really cool is if we could get 10, 15, 20 questions a week that come into our email or come into our Facebook or something. And like every week we walk through those questions and maybe we pick like a best question and give someone a t-shirt and a Yeti.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's a good conversation. It's a constant progression that you need to do things daily until you get it right. Again, being intentional helps with that. Yeah. So aggressive patience. The way I heard Gary Vee say it once, who kind of is where I got my start in listening to Hustle and all that. Matt's writing novels for us. I love it. This is awesome. But Gary Vee talks about macro patience, micro speed. And so like the big picture, cool. It'll take time. It'll take some amount of time to go from your first job that you've ever sold to $1 million business, to a $5 million business, to a 10 million, 100 million, billion, however big you want to go. That's going to take some sort of time. And there's a multitude of factors of industry and all that. But micro speed of like, I read They Ask You Answer. This is the time I failed with micro speed. I read They Ask You Answer and I didn't produce any content. And I joined Tom's coaching group and I didn't produce any content. And he has an entire marketing boot camp. And that went on for months and months and months when really it should have been, I read it. I picked up the phone and made my first Facebook video. Or I did do it for a little bit, but I wasn't intentional. I wasn't consistent.
Right.
So all of those things, like if you make a decision, just do it. Don't be fearful. Don't wait around. Do it. And if it fails, cool, go do something else. Skinny face and skinny man. How much? You've lost a bunch of weight from 75 hard. And this is like, what, second or third time? All right, what's next? Classic Home Conversations. That's not bad.
Yeah, pretty good.
I like that one.
And who's our target audience?
Homeowners, clients, and not just clients in Springfield, Missouri, or in a place that we can directly give them service, my target audience would absolutely be clients who have questions that struggle getting direct answers from contractors. That's the whole point of this thing. Is for so long it was, hey, I want a deck. Okay, let me run out there and I can't give you a price until I come out and see it. And maybe you can't. Maybe you can't give that deck's going to be $10,742. But what you can do is say, oh, it's 16 by 16. Got some pictures. I don't see anything crazy. Hey, that deck is, it's normally 12,000. Maybe 15 to 12 if there's something I don't see, or if we run into a lot of rock or all that. And there's no reason you can't keep track. If you know your business and you know what jobs cost in the past, there's no reason you can't tell a client, in the past clients have spent this,
Right.
and see, hey, is that in your budget? Because like, I really want a Lamborghini.
Mm-hmm.
I also know I can't afford it yet.
Right.
But if you couldn't find out that stuff, like if you can't go and see this is what MSRP
like
is.
You couldn't know that a Lamborghini costs X until you went and test drove it.
Right.
Right. Then you just wasted your time, their time. Well, I mean, you would get to drive a Lamborghini.
I mean, I'm cool with that. But yeah, maybe it's a custom suit.
Mm-hmm.
You have no idea what a custom suit is. So you have the tailor come out and he comes to your office and he does all the measurements and does all this stuff for him to say a custom suit costs $10,000. And I was like, I've got 1,000.
Right.
He's never making, I don't care how cheap of materials he uses or how fast he goes. He's not making a suit that can cost me 10% of what his original price was.
Right.
So that's probably my big thing is bringing transparency to this and helping clients be more educated as much as possible. Mm-hmm. So, down the road, maybe each week is a segment in a different area. Maybe we do all exterior stuff, but maybe eventually we bring on a kitchen and bath person and have them answer questions. Maybe we bring James Miller from Arkansas and talk just about home additions and, what that looks like price wise in his area, what that looks like time wise, planning wise. Like,
well, and earlier Matt asked, like, where's the podcast going in the next few months? Where do you guys want it to go? What kind of things do you want us to talk about? And, what can we do to help clients?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the big thing, is just answering questions they want to hear and growing.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to give them a little surprise about our new Friday series.
Oh, yeah. Talk about it. That'd be cool.
So while I'm kind of in control of this marketing role right now, I am starting a little Friday series. So for the next 10 Fridays, I think, you're going to get like home maintenance tips. And then when those 10 weeks are over, then we'll switch to new topics. So if there's different series you want to see, be sure to comment below or send us an email. Chris mentioned that earlier. We'd love to start getting emails about what kind of questions you have.
Or Facebook messages.
Anything like that. Both of our emails are just our names at classichomeconcepts.com. So,
or you can always go to the website, classichomeconcepts.com, and hit contact us.
Yep. And that way we can answer any questions and stuff you guys have and go from there.
Yeah. Cool.
We've got another comment from Matt.
So this is actually making a segment on the process from sale to breaking ground. I actually want to do a whole video series, Matt, of kind of make like a YouTube playlist. And we'll title the playlist something like new client onboarding or something like that. And go one step further, but break it up for people into shorter, 1 to 5 minute videos and talk about everything from how do you find us? How do you first contact us? What's that initial look like, that initial contact, to the first conversation, to the first time we come out and see you, sign a contract. What's it look like from the time you sign a contract and give us money until we show up? What does it look like once we're there? That's kind of the goal is eventually to make an entire segment about what does it look like from the first time you see us on Facebook until we finish that project, and then what's it look like going forward, whether that means a second project down the road or just continuing to kind of show you what we're doing and educating you on more stuff. Like, I want to talk about all that.
Mm-hmm.
What's the life cycle of a client for Classic Home Concepts?
Right. And Matt also said exterior home maintenance tips. Yep, that's what my first series is going to be on. So if anyone has any maintenance tips, give them to me. Otherwise, you're just going to get my knowledge.
That could be scary. I think you'll probably get my knowledge.
Right.
Or Google's knowledge.
Right.
So talk about that a little. So you just said you're going to start a tips series. Candidly, you don't have a bunch of construction knowledge. So how do you, as a consumer, go find knowledge that's reliable? You know, because anyone can put a Google article out there. Are you checking to see who's writing it, what they're writing about? Like, is it contractors?
Yeah, so I really like to find contractors, especially like different blog posts and stuff from different contractors.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of see what tips and tricks and stuff like that they're giving to their consumers. And then for this first one, then I kind of toss it off of you and get your feedback and stuff. But I also put in there, I'm a homeowner, so like different things around my house that I'm like, we're getting into winter, it's gonna start getting cold, things need cleaned or changed or fixed or taken care of. For instance, this will be one of them for winter, but I didn't know that you were supposed to like unhook your hose from your hose spout.
Oh yeah.
thing.
Yeah, from your hose bib.
Yeah, and like I'm a first-time homeowner, so just different things like that. And so I've really been going through tons of articles and reading about what maintenance you should do owning a house, and then kind of, especially with it being coming fall, relating that to this time of year and what you're supposed to be doing this time of year, and then bouncing those ideas off of you.
Cool.
But I'm gaining a lot of knowledge from doing so.
Yeah, that's the whole point of this, right? Cool. Matt's got to go get his big 5 done. All right, buddy. Have a good day. I'll talk to you soon. Actually, I think we have impact tomorrow, so I'll see you on that call.
Yeah. So, and I mean, we're kind of brainstorming different series for after this one and where it could lead us, but this one's just about home maintenance, and
definitely do a series about like picking the right contractor, because I think everybody values different things. Some people are just looking for low price leaders. Some people want the Ritz-Carlton experience.
Right.
And a lot of people are going to fall somewhere in the middle. So I think that'd be a good series, talking about a couple different things.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think. I think we're good for the day.
Yeah, I think we got it all covered. So
if you enjoyed it, you want to see more, like, comment, subscribe,
share,
tell all your friends.
Right.
It really does. I know I say this most episodes, but it really does mean a lot, because 2 extra shares could be another 300 or 400 people that see this. Especially if you have a diverse friend group that's not already, like, most of my friends, they're going to have a bunch of overlap. And so, like, if you share something, a lot of my friends are going to see it too, because they're your friends. But the more people that share that, the more it gets outside of that friend group.
Right.
And that's really when we get new exposure.
Yep.
So definitely do that for us. And we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.